Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and this is the Road to the Record, where I work to achieve mastery of 10 games in a hunt for the best score of the Decathlon. If you like what you see, remember to hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. Let the games begin. It's Draft Day Sports College Basketball 2019, episode 24 of the series, and we are right here in the championship time of the women's and men's tournaments. At time of recording, and really time of upload, because I'm going to upload this as soon as I'm done recording. The women's tournament is in the books for the year. The men's tournament championship game is tonight. We'll be talking about those as we continue on through this episode, through this season, where things are finally looking up for me, and very much on the up. High hopes for this season. The non-conference schedule is now in the books, and we are 12-1. And looking at the records here, it is a nice 12-1 that we have. For one thing, we had a much easier schedule this season than last. That is a factor. However, you look at the win-loss, you look at the scores from these games, we are blowing opponents away. We've played Houston twice. They are Conference B. They are one of the better teams in the nation. They are 9-3. We beat them both times. So they've had 2 losses to us. They're 9-1 otherwise. We've hardly had a game closer than 10 or even 20 points. The one loss we have taken was to the #1 team in the country, Gonzaga. They were clearly at a whole nother level that we could not match. So we are not an elite program yet. But this year, we're definitely a good program, and I could see us getting at least out of the first round, maybe out of the second round, depending on who we end up matching up with. And, of course, if we stay healthy, which was a real problem last season. But we've already beat 2 elite programs in Houston and St. John's, and St. John's we beat by 25. Houston we beat by 17. We beat them by 7 the first time. To open the season. That was without Clint King, as he was still recovering from his injuries. And we are now ready to get our conference schedule underway. We opened with 2 road games. We've got South Carolina, who are really struggling right now at 3-8. We've got Georgia. That's a good team, 7-4. They are 32nd in the RPI. They have had 5 ranked games in their schedule, and they only lost by 11 to #1 Kansas at the time. Of course, Gonzaga's #1 now. So this is going to be a bigger matchup for us, and that's the first game we'll watch live. I think we should be able to get past South Carolina without much trouble. Fresno State, 5-6. We've got Hawaii on the road. They are 8-3. That's another big one. We've got Tulane, who are 9-3. So there are some teams that are having good, at least non-conference schedules up till this point, and pretty solid. You can see Pennsylvania is 4-7, but they've had 3 ranked opponents all on the road. We've got Marshall, the Thundering Herd, at home, 5-6. Alabama on the road, but they are 6-5. That's Alabama Birmingham, the Blazers. We've got Tennessee, who are 7-4 this season. So as we are back up into Conference F, where we started season #1, the highest level that I've had this school at, we're back up into some pretty dang good competition this year. I expect that we should do well, but that does not mean we are going to come out and win this conference. I definitely think we are on our way to the NCAA tournament based on our season thus far, based on the quality of the team, the depth of the team we have this year, but no guarantees. We still got a lot of work to do. Let's go ahead and get to it. So, opening game, South Carolina. I'm going to go ahead and sim this one. It's the next one, Georgia, that we'll take a live look at. So, meanwhile, let's start with the women's Final Four. So, my alma mater, Oregon Ducks, so close to the upset of Baylor, and it had been the only close game that Baylor had had in actually quite a long time, as Baylor had been running up the score throughout the tournament and throughout their conference tournament and late in the season. They were just utterly dominating everyone. Oregon, so close, but Baylor, through Lauren Cox, primarily, I mean, she was the key component, though Baylor had plenty of weapons, that really affected things. Let's take a look here. And that was 70-59 opening. That was a road game again at what should be a really good team in South Carolina. So 23 points, 4 boards, 3 blocks, and Donnie Jefferson. So great game for him. We got Clint King with 12 and 16 boards for him. Nearly fouled out of that one, though. He also added 4 blocks. He was a plus 21. So Donnie Jefferson might have gotten player of the game, but he was a minus 5. It was absolutely Clint King and his time on the court that really led us to that victory. Granberry had 6 and 7, so not a great scoring day, but he did put up some actually just okay numbers. At least he didn't turn the ball over, but Granberry, kind of a quiet day in 32 minutes played. Watkins, just 8 points for him. Finger, the starter, with just 4 for him, so interesting way to get things going here in the conference schedule, as we shot just 32% from the field. Luckily, we were about 80% from free throws. Rebounds, 38-44, so we were minus on that department. But points in the paint, definitely an area of strength for us. And it was the second half where we got the job done. The other national semifinal, the Final Four for the women, Notre Dame beat UConn. I've already talked about both of these games, so just kind of quick recap on that one. 81-76 Notre Dame over UConn, and the main reason why they were able to pull that out was a strong second half and a strong transition game. Now, championship game, Baylor, Notre Dame. Baylor, best post-play in the country by far. Notre Dame, best transition game in the country by far. Baylor absolutely was crushing Notre Dame through most of that game. And what I was saying in my prediction leading up to it was that if Oregon had won, I think Oregon would have dominated Notre Dame. If UConn had won, I think Oregon would have dominated UConn. And I definitely think that if Baylor could beat Oregon, Baylor was going to beat either Notre Dame and UConn. And Baylor was doing exactly that through most of the game. They had control. They very much were the better team on the day. And then, late in the third quarter, a scary thing happened. Lauren Cox went down, injuring her knee, out for the remainder of the game. She was desperate to return at least to the bench to support her team there in the fourth quarter. Crutches, knee brace, and all. But Lauren Cox, even though she wasn't putting up huge numbers, was still the dominant force, especially on defense. Let's get this game going. We'll let it play in the background as I continue to finish up my recap of the national championship. So, late third quarter, she goes down injured. They were up by double digits. They had been leading by double digits since the second quarter, nearly 20 points in that lead, and we lead 10-4 in this one early on. So Baylor was in absolute control of the game. And then Cox goes out with that injury, and Notre Dame instantly picks it up. Their transition game improves. Their post presence improves. They start finding some space. They start attacking the basket, and they start drawing fouls. All because Lauren Cox wasn't there. So they got back into the game. We're up by 10, by the way, in our game. All because of her absence. They started exploiting that matchup down below. Agumbawale starts getting looks that she wasn't getting earlier. And Notre Dame just closed that gap. Down the stretch, Lauren Cox back there on the bench, supporting the team. And that's where the difference occurred. They got back into it. They started playing for her, even though she wasn't even there. And it was a different game. It was a different look. Down the stretch, they were really fighting back. Agumbawale was being Agumbawale, the hero of the last couple of years, really. led Notre Dame to the national championship a year ago. Here's my 30-second timeout here as Georgia has gotten back into this game. 3 minutes left, and the score is tied. Here, 3 minutes left in the first half. Right now, it's Clint King who's out dominating. 14 points, 6 boards for him. Now, where is the support, though? Where's the help going to come from for him as he's doing most of the job himself here through the first half? Rebounds, we are +5. Turnovers, we are +5. Field goal percentage, that's where Georgia's 52% from the field right now. That's what's keeping them in this game. 6 of 12 from 3 as we lead by 1. By the way, we are ranked number 23 in the nation here as we start the second half with a much tighter game than it was through most of the half. Second half now underway. So down stretch, Gumbawale was effective. She was good. Notre Dame was clearly a different team without Baylor's Lauren Cox there in the post along with their other top players. But down the stretch, Notre Dame had every chance to run away with that game, but Baylor finally stepped it up without the presence of Cox and were much better. In the final moments, I was glad to see that Baylor pulled it out with a narrow 1-point victory, 82-81, for a couple of reasons. One, I predicted that Baylor would beat Notre Dame, but that's not why. I'm more interested in a good game. But pardon me, we're back out to a lead here, by the way, with 11 minutes left to play. For a moment, it was back up to double digits here, so we're looking good at the moment. Little run for Georgia going, though. Let's use the 30-second timeout and start building some momentum. That 30-second timeout instantly took away the little bit of momentum they had built. The lead is down to 5 here. Anyway, with like I said, with that absence, Notre Dame had really taken advantage. Now, I wasn't a fan of them getting the win only because of an injury to the most key player to a game that they were absolutely getting their butts handed to them for 3 quarters. So there's that factor. But Agumbawale was doing the James Harden thing. She was extending that elbow. She was pushing off every time to get an open look. Their screens off the ball in the final few minutes, there was tons of moving screens, and I did not like the way that the game was being called in the final few minutes as the refs were doing the notorious let them play in the final few minutes. Notre Dame was getting away with a lot of fouls, and then they were going to the free throw line, and Baylor was getting called for fouls that were a little bit iffy from my perspective. So, in the end, Baylor coming out with the win, and Agumbawale having a chance to tie the game, and with 3 seconds left, and missing the free throw where she's been so clutch. I think there was a lot of pressure put on her as we're up by 12 here with 3 minutes to play to step up and be the hero again. I saw a lot of analysis, a lot of experts say that Notre Dame was going to win this game simply because they had Agumbawale. I think that was unfair to ask her to do that again. Just because she has done that doesn't mean that she's always going to do that. Nobody is clutch 100% of the time. So I think it was a fair result. I think Baylor deserved the win. I don't think Notre Dame deserved to even come back in that game. I think it should have stayed a double-digit game. But that was entirely because of the absence of Lauren Cox, and I'm glad that Baylor was able to get the win. Not that I'm a fan of... I'm trying to blank. Kim Merkley? Is it Merkley? Malarkey? I'm not quite getting her name right here. But the coach for Baylor, her I can't stand. She is angry. She's aggressive. She screams at her own team. She screams at the refs all game long, apparently all practice long, all the time. The only time she doesn't scream is when she's maybe talking her grandchild. I don't care for that type of coach. I'm not saying she's a bad coach. She's a great coach. But I don't like the screamers. I am a coach. I'm a supportive coach. I try to support my team. I try to give them confidence, even when they are being negative, even when they are not doing the right things, even when they make mistakes. I want to talk them through it, not scream at them. So, not my style. Don't like that style personally. But still, the team of Baylor, I think, deserved that one. All right, so we do get the win, 84-79. Game relatively close, but that's a good Georgia team, and that is on the road, and we're able to come out with that win. Despite the fact that they shot 48% from the field, we came away with the win, but we out-rebounded them. We were better in the turnovers. Our free throws are terrible, but that's typical of this team. We didn't shoot the ball well from 3 today. In fact, I'm not even sure if we had any in the second half, did we? Maybe just 1 or 2. Jared Finger stepped back up this time, 17 points, 4 assists for him. It's a great job for the point guard, who's not even the top point guard for us. So our production off the bench, just so-so today. Nobody in double digits, not a lot of rebounds. So we got this done with the starting 5. It was an exciting game. The absence of Cox, yes, while that was bad, it definitely made the game exciting, as obviously a 1-point game has a lot more excitement than a team winning by double digits comfortably in the end. So I'll give it that. That at least was deserved. A national championship absolutely deserves to have excitement. Baylor was a good team. Now, for me, the biggest news is not about that game. It's about the report that came around that game. Sabrina Ionescu, best player in the country, hands down favorite to be the #1 pick in the draft, but still just a junior. Sabrina Ionescu of my Oregon Ducks has opted to stay for her senior season, going for that national championship, and I'm so excited that she's going to stick around for 1 year, and I wish for her and for the team the best, and for next season, let's go Ducks. Okay, so the men's tournament. We'll talk about that in a second, but let's continue on here. So scouting reports coming up. Fresno State, I believe, is the next game. Yeah, they are now 5-8 as they lose their 2 openers. We're a comfortable favorite in that one. Hawaii, that's going to be a difficult matchup. They're 8-3. But we're favored even more heavily in that one. Pennsylvania coming up after that, 5-8, and we are massive favorites there. And Tulane, this will be a tough one. They were a really good team last year, but again, we are heavily favored. So we are looking very, very good this season to potentially win the conference and make a good tournament run. Let's go ahead and sim through the whole week. We'll go back and check the box scores briefly. RPI, by the way, has just shot up to number 14 in the nation, and so has our rank into the top 20 at 19 with a nice 14-1 record here, which is now only matched by Michigan State at number 2 in the nation, and then Gonzaga, the one team that did beat us, at 15-0. I don't expect to go undefeated in the conference. I do think we'll take at least a couple of losses. We're not that good. But could we be number 1? Potentially. It's way too early to say, though. We've still got 14 games to play. 3-0, though, after winning against Fresno State. This is a tough match. Hawaii 11-3, and we're on the road. That's going to be a big one. That would be that huge test to see whether we're a favorite to win the conference or not here early on in the conference season. That'd be a great statement win to take one away from Hawaii on the road. So, men's tournament, Final Four. I got one of my 2 predictions right. So let's start with that one. Virginia, Auburn. Close game, exciting game, 63-62 final. Virginia going to the championship game. That's the one I favored. I knew Auburn was going to give them a game because Auburn is the hottest team right now in the tournament. After beating Kansas, after beating North Carolina, after beating Kentucky, just to get to the Final Four, I knew Auburn would be tough to beat. And we do get that win. Whoa. Okay, so we just beat Hawaii on the road. That's the game, box score-wise, that I want to go back and take a look at here in a moment. That's big. Let's skip straight to the talking point. The very end of the game. Auburn up, Virginia looking like all is lost. Seconds left, driving hard down the court. Two things happen, both controversial, but the controversy was on the part that wasn't controversial, ironically. The controversy was really about the foul that was called, but let's go back to the one before that. So, point guard, I can't name him off the top of my head, dribbles, he's sprinting down the court, dribbles off his own, the back of his foot, off his heel, turns around, picks up the ball, two hands, and starts dribbling again. By rule, travel. But it happened so fast, it was so hard to pick out how it happened, what happened. You know, this is full-on sprint. Technically, he double dribbled. It should have been called. But who's going to notice that? Who's going to pick up on that? And at the time, absolutely no one realizes it. It is after. It is after some replays that they start picking up on it. Coaches weren't complaining about it. Teams weren't complaining about it. Nobody's going, hey, that was a travel, until much later. So the controversy ultimately ends up in that call, or that absence of a call. But to me, because it was so, wow, and we won by a lot. 81-66. We win both halves. We were up by 10 at the halftime, and they never even led in the game. We led the entire game. Oh boy. Granberry had 19 points, 6 boards. Player of the game today. Clint King struggled shooting. So he had just 6, but he did still have 10 rebounds. So a really difficult game for Clint King. Jefferson only 15 minutes. Why so few? Is it because we led by so much? Hopefully there's no injuries that I missed. No. Okay, no injury. No injury? Yes? Okay, good. And look at that. Now we are 15th. RPI is up to 13th. Gonzaga has their first loss. Michigan State has taken their second loss. So now we are one of just 2 teams in the nation that have only 1 loss on the season. Boy, oh boy, things are going good. Another big matchup here in Tulane coming up now. First glance at the standings. Anyway, so I think that, look at that, Hawaii and Pittsburgh, the only teams with just 1 loss. So we're already off to an early lead here in the conference. We're the only ranked team. Okay, let's get back to it. Tulane. Go one day at a time here so we can see the box score for that Tulane game. So I think that controversy about that travel, about that double dribble, is overrated. Because in the heat of the moment, nobody noticed it. Nobody said a thing about it. It's not like the ref swallowed his whistle when he shouldn't have. Nobody even realized what had happened until after it was done and dusted and they got the slow motion replay. Then he recovers the ball. He starts dribbling again. Yes. Okay, controversy. Let's move past it. Passes the ball to the corner. He's open. But then the shot's contested. Up in the air. No touch. But then the whole lower half of the body crashes into him as he puts up the 3. And it's before the release. So you're affecting the shooter's space and his landing zone. Crash into him in the air and before the release, and it's half of the body that he's making solid contact with. That's a foul. That is a foul all day long. That's what the coach was arguing about. That's what the initial controversy was over. But how is it even a controversy, as it couldn't have been clearer that that was absolutely a foul, and we won comfortably, 86-60 here. The foul puts Virginia on the line. He makes the free throws, and that was that. They win the game, 63-62. Where's the controversy? I don't see a controversy. I think Virginia deserved that. Auburn, wow, though. That was a difficult team to beat because they were so dang hot, and they absolutely could have gone on and competed for a national championship and continued that momentum. But Virginia, I think Virginia deserves to be in the championship game. I think there was nothing wrong with that sequence at the end. He deserved to be on that free throw line, getting that chance. And even then, he still had to make all 3 of those free throws, which he did. That was the impressive piece. Clint King, player of the game, 16-11. Huge win. And it was done and dusted by half. And again, we lead the entire game. This is amazing, this run that this team is putting together right now. Clint King, plus 29. Granberry is a plus 24. And look at that production. Watkins is continually just under 10 points and not shooting the ball very well, but he's still getting the positives. Ouch, the turnovers, though. So Watkins is a bit cold right now. He's had a bad sequence of games. But the rest of the starting 5 doing really well. And then again, the bench production really helping. I mean, they're all on the plus side as well. So we're getting good minutes out of our bench even, and that's 5-0. Next up, Pennsylvania. And this is not Penn State, Pennsylvania. This is the Quakers. All right, let's go ahead and just finish out the week. So there you go. Virginia into the championship game. Now, the other half, the Final Four. This was an exciting game, a tight game, and it ended up being the one that ended with a double-digit victory, and the one that I got wrong. I figured Michigan State was going to be too much for Texas Tech. Not the case. Texas Tech wins the game 61-51, so 10-point victory for Texas Tech. Now, here's my analysis of this one. The refs had everything to do with the game and nothing to do with the game. This didn't come down to some controversial call. Not one call or 2 calls like the other game. It was a game that was called consistently. I don't think the refs made any wrong calls. And yet, to me, this is the one that is controversial. And here's my thought on that one. Games have an arc to the way that they are called by referees. It's always been there. Well, at least always been there for the last 30 years since I've been watching NBA or college basketball. Here's how that arc works. By the way, we won that game. We're 6-0 now. Next up will be Marshall. It's a home game. They're 9-8. It's a decent team. But boy, oh boy, we are looking good right now. Here's the thing. Here's the arc of what is typical. By the way, we're up to number 12 now in the nation, and we are now the only one-loss team in the nation as Gonzaga has taken their second loss. Again, Conference A, those guys beat the crap out of each other, and this is looking better and better for me. That does not make me the favorite. That does not make me the best. Even that 12 rank, that doesn't mean we're the 12th best team, but we continue to win. Here's that arc. So, refs in the first few minutes tend to call things tight. 70% favorite. 80% favorite over the Blazers. Illinois, 11-7, and there's a game. We'll watch that one. Tennessee, heavy favorites. All right, so we'll watch that Illinois game coming up here. So refs tend to call the first few minutes tight. Why? Because they're they're asserting their control over the game. So we see more fouls in the first handful of minutes. They're establishing what the line is. Here's the line. Don't cross it. This will be a foul. This will not be. At the same teams are trying to assert their style. So they tend to be a little extra aggressive in the opening minutes. So you see more fouls called in the opening minutes of a game. Partially because the teams are more aggressive. Partially because the refs themselves are a little more aggressive with that whistle, trying to establish what the line is going to be. Then everything settles into a groove. Teams calm down a little bit. Refs calm down a little bit. And we go through the game. And they call the game just a little bit more loosely than they did at the opening minutes. I've got an injured player. We are 7-0 though. 66-57. Yeah, not a big win. And we were down by 9 at the half. We only had one tie and 3 lead changes in this game. Jefferson, 12-6, 3 blocks, 2 steals. Good day for him. Clint King down on all of my starters, down on minutes actually in this one. Wynn and Lofton, big minutes for them. Finger had 15 to lead my team. We were just 30% from the field. That's ugly. That is very ugly. We did have 51 rebounds to their 37, but yikes. Neither team shot well. We definitely won this game on rebounding. And turnovers, +6. And in the paint. And second chance points. Wow, look at that, 17-4. 66-57 is kind of comfortable. Huge second half. But yeah, we trailed at the half. Now, what about this injury, though? Let's go to the roster and check it that way. It's Jared Finger, the senior point guard. Again, not the dominant point guard, but the one who is what we need him to be, the strong defender. Boy, look at the potential that he could have had. Only we had the way to develop him. So he's at 75% on a strained hamstring. That's going to be 11 days. This could affect us, especially with that Illinois game coming up. Okay, get back to this. Anyway, so call the game tight early on, settle into a groove, back off a little bit on the calls, let them play a bit, but still, be consistent. And then you have the final few minutes of a game, especially a close game, where they, quote unquote, let them play, right? Let the game be decided on the court, not by the whistle. It's not in the rule books, right? But it is standard conduct, and it's gone on for decades. That's the arc of a game. The refs let so much more go in the final minutes. Now, going back to the women's tournament for a moment, and the Oregon Ducks, right? The Oregon Ducks were better for 3.5 quarters than Baylor, and they were up. But in the final minutes of that game, the refs let them play. And there was nothing wrong with that. That is the normal arc. Baylor won that game because they were able to bully the Ducks down the stretch. Why? Because they were a tough post team that fought to get inside. What would have been an offensive foul? Took a little bit more for it to be an offensive foul in the final minutes. So they were able to get there, get inside, get the presence, establish themselves a little bit more ruthlessly, and the same at the other end, right? They were able to bully the Ducks a little bit more on offense. It was difficult to get shots up. It was difficult to get an open look, and they missed their shots. They didn't just miss because they missed open chances. They missed because Baylor was playing tough D down the stretch, because it's the final minutes of the national championship semifinal. So that's normal. Baylor benefited because of the arc of the game, because of the way the game is managed by referees. Alabama Birmingham up next. Blazers, decent record. It's a road game. Won't be easy, especially with whatever's going on with Finger and his injury. 10 days there on that hamstring. Not his finger, but his hamstring. Oh, there it is. Our first loss. Our first loss. And it's by 15. Yikes. Points in the paint, much closer. Fast break points, much closer. We only led by 2 at any point in this game. And Finger didn't even play, so it was Wynn who started his place. Wynn is a better player, but he's not a better defender. So he's better offensively, but without him on the bench, for one thing, our starting 5 is a little bit weaker defensively with Wynn out there, and I don't need his scoring because I've got other scorers. That's why I have my starting lineup the way it is, so Finger did not play at all. And then my bench is so much weaker without Eric Wynn there as a capable scorer when these guys are resting. And there you go. That's why I have Finger starting and not Wynn, at least this season. And sure enough, a loss. Tennessee coming up. It's not all lost, though. Like I said, I didn't expect us to go undefeated. Quick look at the standings. We're still a game clear of Pittsburgh and St. Joe's. So we're still looking like we could be well on our way to a conference title. Plenty of work to do, though. That's halfway. Let's go ahead and finish out the week. Tennessee is next. At home. Won't be easy without Finger, especially if he doesn't play or only plays a few minutes. Anyway, finally back to Michigan State, Texas Tech, and why I thought this one was far more controversial. Like I said, the refs never made a wrong call. Technically. They were consistent all game long. But here's the thing. There was no arc at all to this game. There was no call it tight in the opening minutes. Back off slightly, 5%, 10%. And then really, really back off in the closing minutes and let them play. They went with let them play from the very beginning of that game and never called a thing. Now, Michigan State, they were aggressive. Offense, defense, they were an aggressive team. But Texas Tech, you can watch 1,000 games in the season and not see anything like the display by Texas Tech, who were so aggressive. They hit arm, they hit elbow, they hit body, they hit shoulder. Every play. Michigan State could not get an open look. Could not get an uncontested anything. Whether it was on the dribble, whether it was on the shot, whether it was a layup, whether it was a three. There was contact anywhere and everywhere. Like I said, the refs were consistent. So there was no issue there. But Texas Tech hacked the crap out of Michigan State all game long. That's why the score was as low as it was. Michigan State should have scored 80 points in that game. I'm not saying 30 of those points should have come from the free throw line, but a lot of them would have. And at some point, Texas Tech would have been forced to change their style a little bit, back off a little bit, because they would have had every player on the team foul out had that game been called like any other game all season long. Championship, semifinal, you let a little bit more go. I see that. I understand that. But they let a lot go. They forgot to bring their whistles to that game. And while Michigan State played aggressive, and so Texas Tech, there would have been some more fouls, there as well. But nowhere near the reversal. And Texas Tech were uber aggressive and got away with it. And shouldn't have. That's not the way that game should have been called. And it was just shocking to see every play. Texas Tech commit 3 fouls, 4 fouls, 5 fouls, every single time Michigan State had the ball and not have it ever get called. I mean, that was just mountains and mountains and mountains of contact that was allowed to be a play on. Again, it was consistent, so it wasn't like it was one call or two calls or three calls or down the stretch. They won by 10. But it was just the entire flow of the game not being managed by the referees. All right, so Michigan State has now gone tops in the top 25 rankings, and I've actually gone higher. I'm now 10th at 21-2. Here's the Illinois one. Actually, I wanted to watch that game, didn't I? 65-63, that would have been a good one to watch. We led by 10 at the half. Illinois fights back, but not enough as we hang on to get the victory. Points in the paint were level. Second chance points, fast break points. Wow, that would have been a game. Jared Finger was back for 20 minutes as he's just about back from his injury. He had a few days left at that point, so he did play. He actually ended up being my leading scorer. With 11. Rick Scott, great game for him with 10, but he was only 2 for 8. We were 40%, they were 35. Wow. Clint King, no double-digit rebounders. I'm sorry I didn't get that one for you out there. That would have been something. But there we go, 21-2 now, so we're already past 20 wins. We are now surging ahead, or are we? No, we're still not surging ahead. We're still only one game clear of Pitt and St. Joe's. So we've got to struggle. And again, I think a lot of this has to do with now we're getting into that higher echelon of conferences, right? I mean, this is conference number 6. We're up there amongst the best teams in the nation now. We're certainly not up to that ABC, really, really top tier. But we're kind of in that second category. In real life, for the most part, we talk about, especially in football, we talk about the big 5. Well, I'm just beyond that mark. And college basketball is definitely even and bigger in that respect, where there's a lot of teams from a lot of different conferences that can compete. So, yeah, that is something. That is something. All right. Well, like I said, not one call, just the whole game, as a whole, missing that arc and just letting them play like they would the final few minutes the entire game. And that absolutely favored Texas Tech and their playing style and, 1,000 fouls or 100 fouls that did not get called in that game, allowing them to gain an advantage. So here's the top 30. Clint King missed the start of the season, so he's not even on this list. He was on the list preseason, but then he missed a bunch of games. It brought his numbers down, and really he has not been that great through 23 games. But we're going to get into those rematches here real soon, as we'll have just about completed I think Minnesota's the last team that we have not played yet this season before we start getting into our rematches. So, finally a look at the stats. Donnie Jefferson, our leading scorer this season at nearly 13 points a game. Watkins, the shooting guard, our top assist guy. That's been bothering me the last couple of seasons, that I've not been getting the production at point guard that I desire. Jefferson leading in blocks, Watkins leading in steals. So even though he has been my lowest scorer of the starting 5, he is getting the job done in other ways, just like Finger has been getting the job done and actually scoring, even though he's in the lineup because of defense. Here we are, offensively, only 90th in the nation, so we're not scoring terribly well, but we are 8th in rebounds, we are 5th in steals, and 6th in turnovers. And then defense, number 1 in the nation at 64.9 points per game. 5th in the assists allowed. We're giving up too many rebounds, but we are way ahead in rebounds because of how good we are in rebounding. And then blocks, yeah, not a lot. But steals are up there at 10th in turnovers. So we're protecting the ball. We're forcing a ton of steals. So we are getting a huge turnover advantage, and we are holding teams to the lowest point total in the entire nation right now. And it's not early in the season. And it's not early in the conference season either. So as we get late on here, things have been really good, especially on the defensive front and rebounding. But again, I still don't put us up with these guys. Even though we're 10th in the nation, I still don't think we're 10th best. We are in that lower conference. We have an easier conference matchup, but we're 10-1 in conference. So this is a good team. I think we can make a run. We'd maybe Sweet 16, but I'm not sure if we can get deeper than that at this point. I think we're still a bit of depth, a bit of quality even in the starting 5 away from that point. This is the best my team's been, but it's still not comparative to the best teams in the nation. I think it's just comparative to my conference that we're able to do what we're doing up until this point. So I'm just about out of time for this episode. My prediction for the national championship, it's Virginia, it's Texas Tech. Honestly, I think it all comes down to what the refs decide. Based on that long analysis of why Texas Tech won that game, I think the national championship would be the same thing. If we've got a group of refs that decide to let them play from the first whistle to the last and let most of the fouls go, then Texas Tech, nobody's stopping that. Virginia's got the best defense in the nation, not Texas Tech. Texas Tech's good. It's stifling. But if the refs call a tighter game, Virginia's defense is going to be better. Either way, expect a defensive struggle here in the national championship. Okay, last game of the episode here. We'll check that box score. We'll check those standings one last time, and then we'll come back for one more episode to wrap up this season. That, by the way, will come out tomorrow, and that will be, I don't know, it'll come out Wednesday, normal time. So I'll get it recorded tomorrow after the national championship, and then we'll have that one final game to talk about before we just go back to focusing on the Olympic Decathlon rings and them alone. And so, in this one, we drop the game. Pittsburgh, 95-88 with the victory. So, upset there. This game went to overtime even, and we lost in overtime. Player of the game, Ricky Chambers, the power forward. 20 points for him, 5 boards for him. That's over Clint King. Clint King, what happened? 21 and 18. So Clint King was the much better player, but somehow Ricky Chambers takes player of the game. Why? Because, well, they won. We lost. Good matchup, though. Tight contest. You can see how close we are in a lot of these areas. We never led by more than 3 points in the entire game. Not sure when that happened, but it definitely wasn't in overtime, I'll tell you that much. That's going to do it for this episode. I'm Decathlon Gamer. And remember, I'm aiming for the best of the best. So if you're ready to join me on my journey, hit subscribe and tune in next time on my road to the record. Bye for now.